Disney's and UPA, and he was a union president. Oh my God! And you know, Warner Brothers, and has a very varied and fascinating career. And I think this should be a fun night. So I want to start off by welcoming Bill Melendez. Thank you.
Such a nice group. I think that, especially I have a big, booming, loud voice, everybody tells me. I think I can bend your ears easily without the need of this thing.
Yeah. Can you all hear?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Great. It's
Let's try with that.
It's always a pleasure, you know, getting together with animators and artists. For many reasons, I find that as time wears in our business, I'm always surprised at some of the attitudes that I find emanating from my confreres, my friends, and my buddies, and my fellow artists, my fellow animators, and whoever works with us. You know, of getting tired of the business, of bewailing, you know, God, everything's been done, we're never going to get a chance to do anything, and Jesus Christ, you guys did it all. And, you know, I always thought the same thing about guys like Freddie Moore and the famous old nine old men who I knew when we were all young, and I found out they had the same lumps and warts that we did, and they were just as useless and just as bad sometimes as we were. So, you know, it gets right down to a history in our business. And so the attitude of some of ourselves sometimes surprises me. You know what? We work in a wonderful business, and it's been good to all. The fact that you're in it right now tells me it's been good to you too. And when I look back on 55, almost 60 years of fussing around with this darn business, and I reflect that I really am very happy about those years. And I usually have very good memories. It's like being a kid or having a stomach ache or being in the army. You always seem to remember the good times. You never remember the bad. It's always the jokes and the great moments you had that you remember. And so the same thing applies to me with our business, because I've had some miserable time with the industry, especially the producers, never the artists. Never the artists. It's the producers. And that's why people tell me, Bill, people that know me real well and work with me even, they say, Bill, you have a big mouth. And you're always blurting out and antagonizing those same people that are feeding you and giving you money. And, well, nobody's giving us anything. You know, we work for what we do. And therefore, I take it very, you know, amiss that we should thank them for the work we give them. No, sir. They should thank us every minute, because if it weren't for us, they would be big shot producers. And I remember one time, you know, since I worked at Disney in the 30s over in the old Hyperion studio, I knew Walt very well. And I remember that first day I met him in the hall, and I said, "Good morning, Mr. Disney." I was just a young kid. You know, "Good morning, Mr. Disney." Stopped, says, "Call me Walt." Off he went. I thought to myself, wow, what a studio, what a boss. "Call me Walt," he said. And that was very impressive. See, that was in an era of good feeling between the artist and Walt, because Walt was a great producer. And that should have been enough. But Walt wanted to be an artist too. Why would he want to be an artist? Did you ever ask yourself? I finally asked myself that. What the hell was the matter with him? He was such a great producer. Why did he want to be an artist? He envied our joy in our production. He envied what we did. We work on a desk. One time, in the old Hyperion studio, there was an annex where there was a room half this size, full of guys like me, everybody in their teens, and all of us, you know, in-betweeners and learning how to draw. And old Walt went into a room where a guy by the name of Thurston Harper was working. And he was an old, tough animator from New York. Thurston Harper, you remember that name? That's an incredible name. I'm glad I remembered it. Yeah, old Thurston had a desk there in that annex. The annex had also some rooms where they had some animators working, but those had all those rabble, you know. And so, somebody says, Walt's drawing. So we all peeked over to see what was Walt drawing. What is Walt drawing? My God, he was at a desk, and he was drawing, of all things, we found out later, he was drawing Mickey Mouse. Get up there, kept on drawing Mickey Mouse. He finally got up real angry and left. Thurston went over to his desk, and he said, what the hell was he doing at my desk? He was drawing. What was he drawing, Thurston? He get up. My God, he was drawing Mickey Mouse. Holy Christ, it's the worst Mickey Mouse.
That won't be in any Bob Thomas book.
You know, I'm interviewed often. And I tell this story, but they never put it in. Doesn't matter to me. What I'm getting to you is that here, this producer, this successful, who qualified as a great producer, not quite 35 years old. And I mean, he was famous already. He had a great following. My God, Walt Disney was like talking about God then. Then, can you imagine what it is like now? I'm always getting blasted because I say unkind things about Walt. I always say unkind things about Walt, really, that are inconsequential. All I'm saying right now, criticizing the difference between producers, like maybe you're going to be a big producer, or that guy's a producer, or that. Well, eventually, see, or me. See, we're producers, and we never seem to be happy with that. We've got to get on that desk, and we've got to show them how to draw. You know, we want to draw too, and so we draw. That's the only nice thing I can say about being a producer. You know, you can do whatever you want. You can draw or not draw. And it's part of the great fun of being involved with artists. And it's great when artists once in a while tell you, God, that was a damn good drawing you made there. Oh, boy, that's what makes you proud. Yeah. The only thing that happens to me as a producer now that just kills me, just the worst thing. I just the other day I went over to see a goddamn client about doing a job, and it comes to that moment. I was just telling you, at lunch, comes that moment when they say this. They say, "Great, this is great. Oh God, are you gonna? Oh, good. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna make the greatest thing." Now tell us, how quickly and how cheaply can you make it?
Yeah.
See, that's complete insensitivity to what we are trying to do. I would rather that the client would say, gee, how good can you make it? And when will you make it? That I understand. And that's what made Walt such a great producer. To get back to saying a nice thing about the bastard. And it's this, that he made it possible. I was so shocked when I left Disney to find out that everybody else was drawing 25 feet a week, and at Disney we could do 2 feet, 1 foot, 10 foot, nobody was counting. What was important to Walt was the quality of the work. And he would cancel a whole goddamn picture we'd spend tons of money on, I guess. In time, he'd say, it's not right, let's start again, do it again. We've got to start again from scratch. Start with a storyboard, blah, 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 right down. And he puts his money where his mouth was. That was very admirable. And I take back all the bad things I say about you, Walt.
Yeah, it's funny, I was thinking that when I was talking with Jack Sander, he was saying about how working on Tom and Jerry, that he says he'd go to Fred Quimby's office, and he says Quimby had like nothing on his desk but what he called the footage book. And he says he just had this book, and he had to do 25 feet a week. And he says whenever you went in and you asked for, you wanted a raise, or you wanted time off, or you wanted a drink of water, or whatever. He says, Quimby, first thing you do is open up the book, he wouldn't let you see it. And he'd look at you and go,
I tell you, Bill, you're screwing around too much, Shay. Because he had loose false teeth.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But I know great stories about old Quimby. There was a Mexican animator. Hey, talk about Mexicans. Jesus, suddenly we're surrounded with him. There was this great Mexican animator. His name was Rudy Zamora.
Oh, yeah. He's funny.
Any of you remember a comic strip called Gordo?
Yes. Yes.
Gordo was a character of Rudy Zamora.
No kidding.
Yeah. Anyhow, so when the union signed a contract with MGM, Quimby was, of course, furious. You guys, God damn it. Say, he turns to his production manager. What should these guys animate? All right, you guys, from now on, 25 feet a week, or else out. Rudy, being a cantankerous, undisciplined guy, he worked for me several times. I couldn't stand him. I'd fire him all the time. Yeah. He made it a point of honor, as soon as the contract was signed, never to be caught working. He'd be there, picking his teeth or smoking. And he smoked, the way Frenchmen do. And Quimby would come and say, "Say, Rudy, what are you doing?" And Rudy said, "What do you mean, what am I doing, Mr. Quimby?" "Rudy, you should be working. Why aren't you working at your desk?" And Rudy would say, "I've done my footage. You said 25 feet a week? I've done 5 feet for today." Rudy! Now Quimby would watch him, he's going to watch him. And I'm sure he went to those books. God damn, he put in 5 feet. He put it, you put in your footage every day. And so he'd come up and say, "Rudy, you're terrible. You're not working. You should be working. I mean, I'm paying you good money to be a 25 feet a week animator, and you're not working." Who would say, "Mr. Quimby, you look at your figures. I already did my 25 feet. I don't have to do any more. I did 25 feet. I'm going to go up and play. I'm going to go up and practice my bowling." This actually happened. Quimby goes downstairs furious, whistling through his teeth. He goes downstairs and suddenly hears a room, a hallway bigger than this. Where the animator worked, and Quimby's always downstairs. So Rudy had his bowling ball. Quimby couldn't believe it. He said, "What's going on?" Bam! He comes up and he says, "Rudy!" He sees Rudy with a bowling ball up there, rolling. "What the hell are you doing?" "I thought I had time to practice my bowling." He said, I'm preparing, for the tournament." Quimby didn't know how to control him. He just didn't. And so old Rudy went out of his way to antagonize and to bait him because of the footage. See, Rudy never complained when they put up a time clock. It's the fact that they said he had to do so much work. And he was a very fast animator. God, he could just rip it out.
You said Disney fired him too.
Oh God, that was See, it used to be those days that whenever we mainly worked on shorts. Once in a while, if you were lucky, I was lucky, they put me to work, do some work on Pinocchio. But most of the time, I would be given to some shorts animator to help with shorts. And so when the short was finished, every time he was finished, they would preview it. See, Walt wanted to imitate everything that the majors did. They would preview pictures, so he would preview a short in a little theater down on Vermont. Yeah. Not Vermont near Hollywood Boulevard. The theater's still there. So he would preview the thing there, and so he'd take the unit that had done it, the people that had worked on it, down to the theater to watch the picture with an audience, get an audience reaction, and then after the thing had run, she'd go to the foyer of the theater And then he started to give a critique. I didn't think that joke went over too good. I don't know what he said. He went on and on. Rudy got sick and tired of these things, so he lit his cigarette, went like that, and went over to a far corner of that foyer. And he leaned on the wall and was smoking. Walt was giving his critique to the troops, and he suddenly looked up, and you know how he used to do? He saw Rudy, and he said, "Rudy, aren't you interested in what we're saying? Aren't you interested in our opinion about the picture? What are you doing standing out there?" Oh, Rudy. "There's one thing I want to know, Walt," he said. "What really makes them move?" Let me tell you, I hate to tell you this, but Walt fired him next day. He should have laughed, because he's dealing with cartoonists. The fact that old Rudy went to all this trouble to make a joke, Jesus Christ, who cares? And he was a good animator, he was doing his work. No, was he the one that... There was one animator, I remember at that time, that pulled a dirty stunt. We animated there on twos, everything on twos. At MGM, everything was animated on ones. And I don't know why. Shit, you guys. 25 feet on ones. Okay. So, at Disney, we animated on twos. It was acceptable. You didn't animate on twos, of course, when you have any kind of a pan where you crossed a vertical or anything where there'd be a chatter, that you couldn't do it. Any strobe was not acceptable. So there you had to know enough to animate on one then. But some foreigner, some guy looks like from New York, he started animating on threes at Disney. Well, somebody found out. Next day, of course, he was gone. But, there was a lack of humor. That when we were back there, I was saying, I found that humor was very much alive on the outside, not at Disney. Of all places, that's where should be the best place to be humorous, and the best place to be, a rebel and to just carry on and do what you wanted, because the way the studio was operated was so generously. There was no time clock, there was no footage, nothing. And all they wanted from all the troupe was the best possible work. But yet, if they pulled any kind of a prank or a joke, you can't. Like that thing of Rudy. Another a very close friend of mine. That room I described to you a while ago, the in-between room, we were all a bunch of rabbles. Our salary was $16 a week. I think we must have gotten a raise, $1 raise. So we must have been getting a little over $17, because we had a $2 raise, for Christ's sake. Because let me explain why. So we got some kind of a raise, and of course we were very happy. And but there was one rebel in that gang of hoodlums, that gang of in-betweeners. I guess every day he did it, but I didn't notice for a long time. Every week we'd get our pay. In those days, he was in a little envelope, a little brown envelope you got out, and there was $17.76. $17.76. They deduct in cash. They deducted the rest, for Social Security, whatever. All this had just started. And so this guy's $17.76. God damn. And he would say next week, $17.76. Well, one day, just before payday, the night before, he spent a lot of time putting red, white, and blue bunting all over that room. All over. Spirit of 76. 1776. Long live 76. On. He was all decorated. We had a very nice paymaster. His name was Mr. Keener. There were two people in the studio that we called Mr. One was Mr. Keener, and the other one was a carpenter. I can't remember his name, I forget. Also, he must have been a Swede. Mr. Johnson. Okay, anyhow, so the only people, because nobody else was called Mr. Nobody else. Everybody else was called by the first name. So Mr. Keener come in with our pay. Pass up here, Ron. You know what was going on? 1776. The spirit of 1776. Old Curtis Barnes says he was a rebel. The spirit of 1776. Mr. Keener didn't say anything. He leaves. He goes on passing checks all over or money all over the studio. But that evening, old Curtis Barnes got a little envelope with a pink slip in it. He was scanned.
Wow.
7. So there was his lack of humor. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
I mean, that was funny. That wasn't mean or nasty or not. He was funny. I can see nasty jokes or dirty jokes or whatever. Yeah, that makes find a good reason to fire a lot of people. I fired Rudy Savora many times. But that damned studio that should have been a fountain of humor was not. And we were fostered into thinking that the outside was a disaster. All those outside studios, they were, full of rabble. They really were rabble. They couldn't draw. They were the worst animators. They were just dreadful. Crummy little studios, Oh, they didn't even have, in those days, you would get a drawing board with a hole on it with a no, there was no disc or anything, just two, like, what are those great big, the fattest, spike nails? Like two penny nails, great big, and the top were clipped off, and they were nailing into that board, and those are your pegs. That's the kind of equipment we had, when I went to Warner's.
Wow.
And I was shocked about that. Believe me, I was shocked by the time clock. Shocked by those floors that were just. They used to clean them once a year with crankcase oil.
Crankcase oil.
So we'd walk on and go home and bring this crankcase oil onto our carpets at home. Because at home we had carpets.
Yeah.
So
I remember you were telling me in '91 during remember the picnic we had for the 50th anniversary of the strike? And you said that when you left Disney's, you thought, my career is over. I'm finished.
Dead.
That's it.
I was dead. Yeah. I thought this was the end of the world. Because where else could I go to work? Anyhow, I was picked up by Warner Brothers right away. They gave me a job. And of all things, they put me to work with Bob Clampett's unit. Talk about a contrast. Here I'm working with a guy who is completely mad, a madman. He's just crazy, just full of pep. And everybody in the unit was just crazy. They were just full of pep. They have all kinds of playing pranks all the time. Boring holes on the floor so we could look down at the guys down below and see what they were doing. And then, pouring things down on it. And once in a while, we learned this from Rudy Zamora. We had a contraption in our room, a big contraption. It was like some kind of a great big tall, I don't know, pile on things, and we had on it, those great big wheels that they used to play acetate discs on, all kinds of junk, cans, bottles, anything would make noise. And in my room, we had this great big, it had been a turntable, that was it. That big thing had been a turntable. And there was a turntable. We turn it on and go around very slowly until it gathered momentum, and then, he'd just go spin, most likely at 38 revolution, or whatever it was. So we learned we could pile things on that, and then we turn it on, and they'd drop things, and turn. Blonk, 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 donk, bang, bonk. And so we look down the floor, guys are down there working. So we started experimenting with it. See, we turned this on and he started dropping things. Then he was like Fibber McGee's closet. We started adding things. So it became funny. It built up to a tremendous racket. And those floors were just single one by 6 pine floors. There was no subflooring or anything. The thing had started rattling and shaking, and those guys down there thought it was an earthquake. And we'd play this prank on them several times a day.
What was Leon's last year like?
Oh, Leon was a great. Now, there's another difference in producers. Now, Leon was an old-fashioned. He must have been one of those famous guys. We used to claim that most of the producers, the Jewish producers only, mind you, that were in Hollywood. They all came from the garment workers in New York, and their business there had been they had garment workers, working for them, making, sewing, doing things. And so we had a very low opinion of them, except these guys generally were very, very fun. They were a lot of fun. They were good. Leon was really a great guy. He always wore a boutonniere, and he was very prissy and proper. And he didn't know that Porky Pig was a caricature of him. He never knew that. Porky Pig, little fat pig, was a caricature of Leon. And even when Mel Blanc made the voice for Porky Pig, starting shake to that, whatever he did, he was imitating, poor old Leon. But Leon, one time, in fact, just about the time I left, because I went there in time to mount a strike against Warner too. So we had a meeting with Leon, and we said we're all just the assistants, mind you. He wasn't even the big shots. No, not Chuck Joe, not the animator, not Frisch Frisch, not just the rabble. We were there, and we demanded redress. We said we just got a Disney raise at Disney, and we expect a raise here too. To equal that, we got at Disney. What would that be? I think it was $27.50 something. We should be getting $27.50 a week. And Leon said, $27.50 a week. He looked at all that crap. He thought about it, and then he said, "Oh my God!" He said, "Oh my God!" He started, "Oh God!" He collapsed. He was scared the hell out of him. We thought he was having a heart attack. We went over and said, he looked at this big blubber, big hunk of blubber. Oh my God, we killed him. We killed him. Jesus. Good God, we called the front office and said, get a ambulance. Leon's had a heart attack. God, we were so upset. They finally came and they picked him up and they dragged him to the front office, and we didn't know what had happened. For all we knew, he had died. We were so upset we had killed him. So,
but he was fine.
So nothing happened. Next day, we saw him wandering around. "Hi, Leon. How are you? How do you feel?" "I'm fine. I'm fine." "You okay?" "I'm fine." We didn't know what to say. So he really took all the wind out of our sails, and we stopped our negotiation or anything. We just stopped. We just didn't do anything. And so, the year wore on. Now I was there for 1 year. Now, all this rabble against us, that son of a bitch, he fooled us. We're going to get him. So, we got him to a meeting, and we're going to, say, "Leon, you owe us. Now we want, not $27.50, we want $35 a week." "Oh my God, oh no. And we said, "Go on and die, because we're not going to believe it. Go on." You know what he did? Talk about it. He wasn't even a cartoonist. He's on the floor, the dirty, dusty floor that I described. He gets up, dusts himself. "Okay," he says, "okay, you bastard." He says, "You got me this time, but next year I'm going to get you." He was a great producer, and we really liked him. I used to tell you, 1953 or 4, I forget when it was. No, when TV first started, the main lots right away boycotted TV.
That's what I heard, yeah.
So it gave us an opportunity like you can't believe. We could go into the networks and offer our job, our services, and man, they were happy. And so we had a field day. Oh, I think from 1947 or 48 to 1953 or 4, we had what I refer to as a honeymoon period in our business. Because I don't care what we did, the people in the network were so charmed, the fact that they would even move, that they were so impressed, and the agency, my God, it was great, Jesus, we could do no wrong. And they wouldn't come to us with storyboards now. They'd come to us and say, we'll do a commercial for Ford. Well, what are you selling it for? Well, we're selling, it's a nice car, it has a hard top, whatever you want to say. So
we don't do that anymore.
I know, they leave it up to us, to create the storyboard, which usually would be, we would try to make it funny, and also we'd cast it, we'd cast the story, we'd do everything, and just deliver them a finished picture. And oh God, they were just, you can't believe it, they're so happy, they were just practically, groveling at our feet. And so that was a honeymoon period. Until they learned about, that they could hire their own storymen, and they could hire a lot of their own artists and writers, and completely bypass, the animators. And so it changed, and it became not as good as it had been between 1948, 47, 40. I think we must have made one of the first commercials ever made for TV, right here at UPA. And they happened to be for Ford spots, because they came to us just to do them whatever we wanted, and we did. And that only lasted until 1953 or 4. Seems, I don't know why 1954 seemed to be was a bad year. And that was the end of our honeymoon period, where we could really do whatever we pleased and have a wonderful time.
Around this time, were you affected by the blacklist?
Oh, Jesus!
54 is when the FBI shut down Tempo.
Well, about 1949 or 50, a conclave of congressmen came to this town. They were called the Un-American Activities Committee. I don't know why they were, or who gave them that right, but anyhow, they spoke for the government. They came in and started ferreting out communists. Now, if you know anything about what you do, and what I do, and what we do, to think that animators are going to be influencing not just politics, but national policy in any way, it's just insane. We were crazy-minded, and as a matter of fact, we did do some terrible things as a joke, and it wasn't very well received. Guys, of course I'm a communist. Are you kidding? I've been to Russia several times. Well, in those days, see, you said that, and you were out. But we didn't know that. We were just crazy cartoonists. And in those days, like for example, I personally was attacked by, I don't know who, anyhow, according to, we were releasing through Columbia, and the labor management lawyer of Columbia called me in and said, "You are raising too much hell." And he said, on top of everything, he said, "There's reason for people to believe in this town that you have communist leanings and sympathy." I said, "Really? Ooh." Jeez, that was pretty heavy. I'm a Mexican. What do I know about these things? Well, I'm a citizen. Anyhow, so let me tell you. So then he told me here was the blow. He said, "I've been told by the American Legion and the IATSE that you are pathologically unfit to work in this business." I still don't know what it means. But that started happening, and that was a very an easy time. And now I know why I'm always bad-mouthing Walt. At that time too, yeah, he was a friendly witness. He went in there and named a lot of us as communists. You see, the only place he could say that was before the committee, and we couldn't sue him. That's why I told this guy at Columbia, I said, tell you what, Bob, I said, if you openly charge me of being a communist, I'll sue the hell out of you. You have to prove it. I'm not saying that I believe you're a communist for Christ. I'm telling you that you're raising so much hell that this is the words going around that you are pathologically unfit to work here, and they're going to get you out. They're going to kick you out. I told him this, and I still stand by it. If anybody would have been that strong to kick me out of this job isn't worth having. That's what I told that guy. He said, well, you try it. I said, but I'm going to fight you down the line. But if you can't get me out, the job isn't worth having. It's just too upsetting. You know, we're artists. We're as cartoonists, for Christ's sake. And that's what irritated me, that they would use this kind of pressure on us. For what? Am I going to go back to Warner Brothers or to UPA at that time and do something to a storyboard that's going to put a snide little, left-wing something? You know what I did recently? I didn't tell you this. I was talking like this to some of my people at the studio where I work, and one of the girls that works for me there, Nina Skahan, great Irish name. She was listening to all this stuff, and she said, "Would you mind if under this freedom we have not to get back, all this secret information, Freedom of Information Act, if I get whatever they got on you and we find out what the hell you were so guilty of that you were pathologically unfit?" I said, "Wow, go to it." So she did it. She sent back. The most embarrassing thing happened. They sent back a few sheets. They were all blacked out, with.
It's still secret.
I don't know what's secret. But then they said, however, they said, we find that this person was not either important enough or knew enough to have cost anything to anybody at any time. I thought they'd say, "Oh, this rascal, he did this and that."
I mean, June Foray made it to Richard Nixon's enemies list. It's true. Rocky the Flying Squirrel was on.
I should have made it. I should have made it his list too, because see, I knew him. But this was in about 1946 or 47, and there was a lot of turmoil here in Hollywood. And that's about the time. See, I was involved in trying to send Willie Byoff to jail.
Yeah.
We went and testified, and so I believe that they might have a little opinion of me.
Just explain, in the late 30s to about the end of the 40s, there was two unions trying to take over Hollywood. You had the Conference of Studio Unions, which the Cartoonist Guild belonged to, the one that organized Disney, and then you had IATSE, which was like the sort of live action technicians.
All the crafts. They had all the crafts.
Yeah. And the thing, and they fought each other, like literally, they actually like fought in the streets and all. And the IA had a lot of gangster ties from about 1934 onward. And the second in command of the IA in Hollywood was a guy named Willard G. Byoff. It was actually his name. The guy's name was Willie Byoff. And he'd been a low-level gangster for Frank Nitti, who took over the Al Capone mob when Al Capone was sent up the river. So the union guy was like from the Capone mob, And at one point he tried to hijack the Disney strike, where he stepped in between the cartoonists and Walt Disney and said, "Oh, I'm representing them. I'll take over," and actually tried to like sort of muscle in, So by the end of the 40s, the guilds, the Congress of Studio Guilds, had broken themselves on a lot of violent strikes in Hollywood, and the IA used the anti-communist thing to kind of like finish them off. And then they there was an election in Hollywood around 1950 to say what union the cartoonists would belong to. And from what I understood, most of you guys went for the Guilds, and Walt ordered everybody to vote for the IA.
Yeah. Well, no, see, this is the end of a very trying time where a lot of our guys were very scared, you know, it was very frightening. You don't know what they were going to...
Were you involved in the violent stuff in '45, the fighting in front of Warner Brothers, where they were...
Well, it was,
beating
yeah,
each other up?
they would, right after the war, we were up there, I don't know what the hell we were doing there. Again, I don't know what we were doing. I guess we were on our way over to our picket line.
Yeah.
No, it was after, I don't know, we were on our way someplace, and they were throwing great big, steel nuts and bolts at us.
Shit.
Jesus. God, so he was very violent, unstable moment, and to have cartoonists, you know, be involved in that was just completely crazy.
Yeah, I know what's name. One guy was telling me that his father was Jeff Massey. Was telling me his father, Reg Massey. So,
Reg, yeah, I really.
Yeah, that he was at he was eating at the Copper Penny in front of Warner Brothers when the whole fight broke out with tear gas and the hoses and their tire chains, and everybody was beating each other up on right there in front of Barham where the smokehouse is.
Yeah, well, I think we were picketing in front of the studio. This had to be, it was almost 10 years before, it was like 41. And that's the first time that we were aware of these thugs showing up. Because several thugs showed up and they went up, you know, not through our picket line, but they crossed and leaned up against the wall on the Disney side, and they had chains. You know, they had great big chains.
So 41?
Did you see 41?
No kidding.
And these guys, you know, had big chains, and they were banging them, looking us guys over. Jesus, what are you going to do with these guys? They have chains. They got chains. So he was very, he's a kind of a weird time, and I'm glad that it seems to be over. And, well, you know, because it's not worthy of us. We are cartoonists. And so when I think of of those days and relate them to what's happening, see right now we are in halcyon days, as somebody said. Just think, as I read in the paper, how right now animation is at its peak of acceptability and admiration. Better than being told that you're pathologically unfit.
How was what was your cleanup like? Did you have your personal assistant, or was it a pool?
Yeah.
Or?
No, everybody had a personal assistant, but at Warner's he was, you know, I still feel that I got something out of Warner's that was this. When you're animating and you're drawing, see, you draw them as well as you can, and I like to make a lot of real nice poses, and then leave it up to my assistant, you know, to carry on. But I hate just to leave it up to the assistant to get a model sheet and then do it, because I lose something. I think it's more important that I put in a lot of drawings in a lot of well thought out poses. Sometimes I do every other drawing.
Yeah, that's what I learned from Emery. Emery used to put a lot of roughs, a lot of rough in between.
But well drawn roughs
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
No, I like that, and I still do it. And I think that at Warner, see, there was this terrible thing that happened in little studios like that it's not important except just in passing. I say this: the studio used to count drawings. See?
Oh yeah, the drawing count?
Because we had to do 25 feet a week, right?
Yeah.
My assistant had to do 25 drawings a day.
Oh, 25 drawings a day.
Which is nothing. Anyhow, and so, but I didn't want him to. I just had to have the see, like some of in the telephone things that I drew. Those are drawings that I did very carefully. You know, some of those poses were very carefully done because I didn't want it to look like once in a while you see a duck. There's a weird duck from I don't know where he comes from. So I didn't want to have it, you know, revert to that old-fashioned.
Did you get? I mean, a lot of those poses are like you have a strong pose in the smear drawing. You know, just sort of distortion.
Yeah.
So did you rough to control the smear and everything?
very much so. You just try to be sure that what comes out there is what you were thinking about. I mean, that's your responsibility, so you have to do it. And so I always try to do it.
I have to ask you a question because all the historians want to know. How come there's always like C. Melendez and J.C. Melendez and Bill Melendez and how many different Melendezes?
Who asked me here about being a Mexican? Is it you? Okay. When I came to this country, see, my name, I come from, in Mexico, which doesn't mean much to you, but to me it was very important. We come from a military family. And my father was as crazy as I am, worse. Never worse. We weren't even good friends. I never in my life called him father or dad or anything like that. Always said sir, always sir. Never, ever. Anyhow, when I was born, I guess my father, being rebellious, he looks at me over and says, well, my God, I'm going to name him after the last king of the Aztecs, Cuauhtémoc. See? Okay. So they took me over to get me baptized because, of course, the family was very, very Catholic. So we go over to be baptized, and this is what my mother told me, years later. She said, so the priest said, yes, good, nice. Bring him here. Now, what is the young fellow's name? And my father says, Cuauhtémoc. The priest says, what? That's not a name. That's a heathen name. Where's his Christian name? My father says, that's his Christian name. The priest says, I can't baptize a child with an Indian name. So my father said, all right, take it back. Go on, let's go home. The priest said, un momento. Yeah, un momento. He said, we can't possibly christen him with that Indian name. He has to have a Christian name. And so I think that I was born with St. Joseph's Day. So he said to my father, we shall name the boy Jose Cuauhtémoc. Yeah. My father said, okay. He was a weasel. He gave in very easily. He didn't put up a fight. That's why we never were good friends.
So where does Bill come from?
Well, I tell you, he could have even started at Disney, but he started his industry because somebody pointed out, that's a hell of a name, because I insisted on using Cuauhtémoc. That name's too big. He said, they're going to hog the credit. We can't have that name. And see, like at Warner Brothers, even before this, we used to take turns. Only one name would get the... But when they had 3 or 4 guys getting screen credit, if you had Jose Cuauhtémoc Melendez, it'd be that long. See, everybody else is, Bob McKimson. So Rod Scribner, Emory Hawkins, Manny. So they said, we got to call him something else. I said, we'll call him Bill. I'm a weasel too. I gave in very okay. That's how I got Bill. But that's been a great thing, a great boom to me because it's given me anonymity.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. People try to call me and they look for Bill Melendez. They don't know such animal in the phone book or anywhere. And they don't know that it's Cuauhtémoc. And so they don't know me well enough to know it's Cuauhtémoc. How are they going to find me? They don't. But so that's, see, Jose, but my first given name is Jose, which I hate. I hate that name. It's a terrible name. And I hate my father for submitting to that content.
So I was curious, so now growing up in a military family in Mexico, when did you become an animator? Or like what made you suddenly go, I want to be I want to do Daffy Duck?
It's kind of a boring story, but it's very short and sweet. We came here to learn English. See? With the full understanding that as soon as we learn English, so I got through like junior high or something, or at least high school, I had to go back to go to the military school. Yeah. And when I was 17, my mother showed me a letter from my father, I see by the date that Cuauhtémoc, that's me, he's 17 years old and it's time for him to come back and be enrolled in school, in the military school. And so my mother said to me, see, by that time my mother liked the idea of not living with my father. So she decided she didn't want to go back. Besides, she's the one that had the money anyhow. Yeah, so she says to me, see, Mexican mothers are like this. None of you would know this, but this is what happens. She looks me in the eye and says, my son, hijo mío, she says, you don't want to go back, do you? I wanted to go back the worst way, but I said, no, mother, I don't want to go back. But I had to support, I had to stay with her, so. But that was the reason. Now, but see, when I was going to school here, the reason I never studied art or was involved with anything to do with drawing, other than privately, was because I was going to be an engineer. My thing had to always be in academic courses in school, and usually mathematics, so I could go back, see, and fit in the role. And suddenly, see, my mother, my son, you don't want to. So I'm stuck here with my mother and my brother and sister, and I was really fed up with this whole nonsense. Anyhow, now I'm out of school, and my mother, the same lady, was in my son. What she should have said, my son, now that you've graduated, would you like to go to college and continue your education, in mathematics, whatever? She didn't say that at all. She said, well, you're through with high school now, you can go to work. And where could I go to work? I got a job at Disney. You know why? Because being I was a doodler, and I thought I could draw. That's why I never took art drawing or art appreciation or anything I should have taken. I missed out on all that. That's why when I went to work at Disney and I found out that everybody was so far ahead of me, Jesus Christ, I never saw so many good artists, so many well-trained and wonderful craftsmen. I was completely befuddled. But at Disney, they had a luck of the Mexican. I go to Disney and they have here's a studio where they train us. Not only they train us about in-betweening and all this nonsense, but also they had 5 nights a week. They had 5 nights, different classes. There was a life class, action analysis class. There was an animal class, drawing animals. And there was maybe some kind of animation, something like that. 5. There were 5 classes. And so when I found that out, and I saw how far ahead all of you were ahead of me, I said, well, by God, me and my mother, we're going to stay here, but I'm going to learn how to draw now. Because a guy by the name of, what was that, the bricklayer, what was his name? The guy that was hiring us at Disney, at that time, they were hiring anybody they could draw and putting him through a schooling program. No, he was a redhead, very nice guy. Anyhow, he's the one that told me, well, he said, you obviously have talent because I showed him my drawing, see? But he says, you have no training at all. No training. But they had wonderful teachers teaching there. One guy by the name of Rico Lebrun was a great artist, a great American artist. And boy, could he draw animals. Ooh, Jesus. We had started to work at that time on Bambi. So I right away enrolled in the animal class. I had to learn all about animals. Drawing deer. We used to draw deer, horses, elephants, whatever. They're drawing away, real great. Rico Lebrun standing behind me watching. Then he takes my pencil from me, like that. And then alongside the leg I was drawing, he goes like that, he started going like that. And then he gave me my pencil. Now that's a horse's leg. What you have drawn is a dog's leg.
Wow.
He was great, but he was a great teacher. You see, this used to be Mexican country, and most of when the Americans took over California, they integrated into the Mexican society. The reason they did it because that way they could inherit all the land.
Oh yeah.
They're very smart. And so it didn't seem to be easy. And also Walt used to go down to Mexico and hire polo players to bring him up here to put him in his team.
Oh yeah, he loved polo. Yeah.
What was his name? producer for Disney for a long time. He was a Mexican polo player. There were several. There were a whole bunch of Mexicans that he brought up from Mexico to play polo for his polo team.
Yeah.
He had a polo team.
Yeah, I heard it was big.
Oh yeah.
Somebody said that one guy was telling me that Tyler was a big polo player.
Oh yeah. Tyler, yeah.
And that he used to keep a saddle in his closet and a crutch. So he was always falling off, breaking something. He was always breaking one part of his body and had to hobble around.
Yeah, he was a great talent, and he was a. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. Here.
That's okay. Oh,
Yeah.
here.
He was Bill Tyler was not only not just a great actor, I mean, animator, and a great artist. He was an incredible craftsman, and he'd studied, in European schools, so he was very, very well equipped to do what he did. And he loved the American West, so he always wore boots. I used to kid him. I said, I look like him.
Yeah.
And so we used to have an act we did about, mirror act. And I used to kid him about, take off those goddamn shoes, those are terrible shoes. And he always wore boots. And he's a good writer. And they had a, those were the funny thing about, I'll tell you another funny thing about Walt that bears repeating. In spite of all these negative things I can say about him, I'll always remember that he made it possible for me personally to go to such a school as the studio, and to learn how to draw and animate and learn about art. I knew nothing about the different schools of art. I started buying books. He taught me. He had a great library. I used to go in that library that he used to have in those days. My God, I was getting books out all the time. Because I could go up there and get great art books. Great, all kinds of books. And I started reading about Cezanne. I didn't even know that there was such an animal as Cezanne or any Picasso, whatever. He had all that was made available to this group of young artists.
Mark Davis told me that once a month, once in a while, they would all go down to a theater on Fairfax, and they would see like art films, like everybody always thinks of Disney's taste as being sort of very hokey or very, very kind of mass, crass or something. But he said once a month they would all go down to this theater, and they'd see like a Chine Andalou or a Cocteau film or something very avant-garde that you normally wouldn't see in the theater, and then we'd all talk about it afterwards.
Well, I'm surprised. Yeah, I never would have heard about it. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know if Walt specifically was there, but the other guys.
well, that's different.
Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you, that the school was the studio. Everybody, hell, he was the studio that started these art classes. He wasn't Walt.
Yeah.
He was the artist that started art classes, and he was the artist like Art Babbitt and others who encouraged Walt to hire these guys from Chenard to come in and teach, because he was so valuable to the studio to have well-trained artists. So that's what made the studio. But Walt made it possible by financing these things, and so he had this crazy, not ambivalence. He was a very complicated person. How could a guy be so generous in one way and then be so bigoted in another? I don't know. I just don't understand it. And it makes no sense now. But the tradition that he started is still alive. See, look, all you people here.
Yeah, well,
You're all here because that old rascal, started a tradition in our field, in our in animation.
you want to repeat that story about Ferguson, or?
Oh yeah. Well, Fergie Ferguson was one of my favorite human beings, and he was a guy that started working in our business in New York as a bookkeeper. And as a bookkeeper, earning maybe $8 or $10 a week, he realized he was making checks for these guys who were earning $200, maybe $300 a week. So he says, "What do you guys do for criminy sakes? We're animators. What do you animate? How do you animate? We draw these things. How do you draw those things? Well, in those days, typical cartoons were done very much like Mickey Mouse used to be done in those days. And he was like this. You've been told this. A quarter, nickel, and 2 dimes. And you could draw a figure. See? And you put it on, I could draw you Mickey Mouse perfectly with those. Anyhow, so he says he started learning by using that. And he taught himself as quickly as he could to draw so he could become an animator. Okay, he became a fantastic animator. And he used to draw, like you couldn't believe it. He gave us lectures all the time in action analysis classes and in animation classes. And he said, well, he says, you know, I can draw, but he said, you know, if you're gonna animate the fox, you know, from, you know, Gideon the fox,
Yeah.
and he said, you know, just think about what the fox is gonna do. Think about what, and then plant his feet down, and then now build this pose from that, and then he'd draw a pose. And I said, see, as you can see, I can't draw the fox, but and he'd have a great pose up there, you know, just great. And so he was that kind of a guy. He could draw, but very humble. And one time, I was in his unit for some reason. I don't know what I was doing there, but I was working. And one of the pills in the unit, who happened to be the head of the assistant, you know, there used to be a guy that had a room where they had a whole bunch of assistants.
Maybe like a supervisor?
Yeah, like a supervisor. And he came in and he had a scene. He was flipping it, and he said, look at that. Hey, look at that. Look at that shit. Look. He went on and on. Look at this crap. God, look at that. Gee. And everybody looked at it, and I thought, gee, it must be terrible. God, horrible drawing. And he was a scene of Donald Duck. And old Fergie comes in. And he stands around, looking around too. And this guy says, look at this, Fergie, look at this. Now he's talking to our boss, you know, the boss of the unit. And he's telling him this terrible, look at this terrible scene. And old Fergie didn't even change the expression. Said, have you shot a test? How can we shoot a test of this crap? This is junk. This is terrible. Fergie says, shoot a test. The guy finally realized that he was going a little bit too far. Well, okay, I'll shoot it. I'll get it. We went and shot a test. Next day, the test was a sensation. Everybody thought it was a funny, wonderful, you know, duck test.
Yeah.
Fergie never said a word, but he sure made a point with me. I've always forgotten that, so now I'll never, ever put down what I think is might flip to me a bad scene. Let's shoot a test. And that's the only way to deal. To me, that's the acid test. You shoot a test.
How were you and Schultz brought together to do the first cartoon?
Through commercials. In the middle, in the early 50s, he started his cartoon strip in 1950. In the middle 50s, by that time, he was fairly well known, but not too popular. And also his drawings were kind of strange. I liked his story, but I didn't like his drawings at all. And so J. Waller Thompson, who was the agency for the Ford Motor Company, was trying to do something with a new car they were coming out with, which is called the Ford Falcon. Now, at that time, I was doing a lot of commercials for Ford. And so they asked me if I would like to audition, you know, to animate a character. Well, it was very strange to audition. I said, well, you know what I do? I'm an animator. No, this is different. He says, have you ever heard of a comic strip Peanuts? I said, yeah. Yeah, I like it. I've seen it and I like it. Very good. Well, he said, that's when you'd have to animate. But the creator of Peanuts doesn't want to let New Yorkers or Hollywood types get their hands into his thing and change it. So we suggested you see to them. Oh, okay, as long as he meets me. So we went up to meet him up in Sevastopol. And he was living in a real nice estate. I would call it an estate, up in the woods up there. And he had a big sign, welcome New York, welcome Hollywood. We went in and we knew we weren't welcome. He's a Swede and very dour and not at all like I imagined he would be. And so he wanted to know what we did, what I did. So I brought a reel and showed him, you know. I was doing a lot of beer commercials. He doesn't drink at all. And I told him I had worked, of course, at Disney, which oh, that was pretty good. That meant something to him. Well, you know, he's from the Midwest too, and so to him that was pretty good. And then I told him I worked for Warner Brothers, and he didn't like that too much. Phew. So when I said that I worked also at a place called UPA, he said, "What is that?" I said, "Well," I showed him some stuff. He was closer, you know, because he was very stylized and he was based on flat drawings. And so that he understood. So he said, well, he allowed us, he would let me animate one spot. So that's how I met him. I did it. From then on, we've been good friends, so now he won't let anybody else animate it. And sometimes he's sorry. Because, you know, it's impossible if you're animating something not to inject something of yours in there. And he always questions that. He said, who did that? Well, I always blame other guys, see. Even if I did it, well, you know, Sam James did that, or Bill Littlejohn. That was my first experience with him, you know. In that first scene, I did a minute spot. A minute spot was a stack of drawings about that big.
Yeah.
And so he came down to see it. So I said, well, this is the first spot. And so same way, he looked at the top drawing, that's all right, put it down. He was an extreme based on his drawing, see? And then the next one, wasn't quite as good. That's not it at all. He said, no. He went on, once in a while he'd find a good one that was based on his drawing, and then a whole bunch that weren't. So he kept pecking at it, so I said, one moment there, Sparky, I said. See, he picked one that was especially bad. He was like a 3/4 shot. Charlie Brown was beginning to turn, you know. And see, you can't turn Charlie Brown. You know, the way he's drawn. So anyhow, he was about like at a 3/4 shot. He says, that's a terrible drawing. I says, here's Sparky. Here's a pencil. Now you draw it the way it should be.
Yeah.
See? You draw it. So he put it down, he looked at it, well, I would never put him in that position though. I said, it's a state rest, Sparky. We got an idiot. You have to. I have to go from a side view, you know, or a front view to a side view. Now there's a point where he's going to become very mushy unless, you know, I do it a different way. And I was experimenting. I finally found how to do it. The way to animate these goddamn flat characters is you start it, see? The front view is like this, and you start it going, and then you start going, and then you jump, and then finish in the next pose, and it works. And that's the only way I could get in his good side. But boy, he was sure upset at our drawings. Same thing, one at a time.
Joe.
You said that Eddie Selzer fired you one time. What was that over?
Well, see, I was the leader of the union bunch. I was the
That'll do it.
yeah, and I challenged him too. See, up came up a terrible thing for him. In 1940, what was it? There was an election, and there was Truman was running against Dewey.
Oh, 48.
48. Okay. Truman was running against Dewey, and there was a third party started with Wallace. And of course we were, you know, we hated Dewey. We didn't even know he was a New Yorker, and we certainly didn't like Truman. He was a yokel from the Midwest someplace. And so, and we were artists. And for some reason, our leaders were like people like Chuck Jones and I don't know, Art Babbitt. I don't know. Our leadership was just cartoonists who happened to be, I guess, must have been in those days considered liberal. Anyhow, I hate the word for reasons that I could tell you, but what happened then was this. So Eddie Seltzer said that anybody caught wearing a Vote for Wallace button would be fired on the spot. How dare he? How dare he try to tell us. You know who else was with me? Ambry Hawkins.
As a closer, could you give us a sample of Snoopy's voice?
Well, I'll tell you. Well, I do Snoopy's voice electronically. See, in other words, I go like this. We have one of those machines that you can, speed or slow up the tape, and so I will talk. See, I'll know what the dialogue is. Like Snoopy will say, "Oh no, not this time again. Come back for me later." So then I act it out, see, with wow. But see, I tape it at about this speed, normally. Wow. Then I speed it up until he sounds like Snoopy. I also do the voice for Woodstock, same way. Now, how do I do Woodstock? He's birds, so he talks with chirps. So I'll say chirp, 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 chirp. I try to put some emotion into it. Chirp, 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 chirp. And then I speed up and I go until he sounds like Woodstock. So it's easy. But you know what's great about it? You know how I hate unions. Well, so I've been doing this since we started doing Snoopy, and finally the Screen Actors Guild became aware that I was doing this.
You get the minimum time.
So they said, "Wait a while, that belongs to the Screen Actors Guild. So you either join the guild and pay dues, or else hire an actor to do it." So I said, "Well, all right, I'll pay dues." But I said, "It's crazy because these are just sound effects." I'd said them. No, they said, "You have to pay dues." So I paid dues. So a few years went by, and then suddenly I have a great gal that works for me. That's she does the business, And she said, "Did you ever get residuals for your voice work?" I said, "Of course not. Why would I get residuals?" She said, "You should get residuals. I mean, all these years you're doing this thing, and you should be getting residuals." So I said, "Are you crazy? They'll throw you out of the office." She starts, sending into the Screen Actors Guild, reporting, and suddenly I begin like $30,000 to $40,000 a year in voice.